Hey guys, Igor here from Gospel Powered. As requested, we're gonna shoot a series of videos for you guys, for the early adopters. The first one, this one being an overview of the theme options that powered the New Life Church theme. And what we're gonna do in subsequent videos is go basically more in depth with some of the more advanced features. So it'll be a step-by-step approach. Today being an overview of the theme framework itself. So let's go straight into it. So what I'll do is I'll log into the WordPress backend and we'll have a look at those options. So you'd be very familiar with this dashboard screen of WordPress if you've used it before, and you might have even used themes before that have theme options, and usually it's one of the options along here. So it's no different with this one. You'll see New Life theme. And if you click into that, you'll come to the starting screen being the styles for the theme options. So what you can see here is several tabs. It can be quite overwhelming. There's a lot of things happening here, but I assure you it's pretty simple once you sort of realize how to think about this framework. So what you see here is a drop down with different outlines, theme outlines, and I'm going to run you through what outlines are, and then you've got several tabs: styles, content, particles. I'll explain quickly in today's video what particles are, but we're not going to go into this section until next video. And there's page settings and then layout settings, and there's also a tab that will pop up I can show you now if I go into the home outline, called assignments as well. So one of these here. So we'll go through each one as a bit of an overview, and then, as I mentioned, we'll go into some of these in more detail, but give them their own video, give them their own time slot, so to speak, because they need it. Okay, so if you've used other theme options before, which some of you might have, you'd be familiar with styling options for that theme. A lot of the more multi-purpose themes come with theme options, and there's different color settings, font settings, and so on that you can set. So this is essentially like that. So what you can see here is some core styles, colors, and font families. So this is basically for the whole site. Some general settings, some color schemes, and then we go into this area called section styles, and I'll explain a little bit about what that is, and then configuration styles, which is for your responsiveness settings, and also some menu settings as well. So before I go into the section styles, I might just explain or give you a bit of context around what this is, give you a bit of background so you know exactly what I'm talking about. So if we look at the main site, you'll see that there's a logo and a menu. You'll see that there's an image there, which is a slider essentially, with one image. There's a welcome sort of intro area. There's some icons there, sermons and events and so on. So normally the way you would do this is, in traditional WordPress, is using templates, essentially page templates. And usually they're for the more advanced user, but with our theme framework, this has been made very, very easy as a drag and drop interface. So all you have to do is drag and drop in your building blocks, and off you go. So we made it very, very easy. So what I mean by that is, if you go into the layout tab, you're going to basically see a replica of what you see here. So you see these different sections: header, navigation, and so on. So navigation contains your logo and your menu. Then we've got a slider. Then we've got a welcome message and some icons. And essentially that's what you see here. You've got your menu and your logo, your slider, your welcome, and some icons. And then it goes on to sermons, events, and latest posts, which is essentially what you see here: sermons, events, and latest posts. So it's very logical, the way that it's been built. So all these are sections, effectively. Those are the names of the sections. And each section is very flexible. There's no more going into the back end, looking at code or adding in shortcodes for new elements and things. Essentially, it's just as easy as adding a new row. So you can add as many things as you like, and just drag and drop these particles in. Again, we'll go through particles in a separate video. But going back to styles, if we look back on section styles, they're essentially replicating the section names in the layout tab. So again, you see header, navigation, and so on. So all of those sections that are available have their own styling. And these are very much aesthetic styling options. So, you see background, the text color, and image. So you can very, very quickly set that up. So if we want to take, for example, one of these layout sections, let's have a look at this one here. So if you're more of an advanced user, you can quite easily figure out what this section is in one of two ways. You can have a look at the layout tab and you can follow the direction of this through, and you can see that this is an icon particle sitting in the sub feature section. You can also right click in Chrome and you can see that it's also in the sub feature section, if you need to know that. Now, what we see is that there's some icons here, but there's also a background as well. So let's see how that's done. So sub feature, we've got some icons here. This is a particle you can just drag and drop in here and configure its options. So there's the three options there. There's icon color. There's a whole myriad of options here to make it nice and flexible. But we can see that here, listen to messages, prayer requests. It's all like for like in here, so it's very, very easy to see. And if we drill into each one, so each one of these, you can see that listen to messages is the title icon. This icon here can be just easily chosen here. There's a whole Font Awesome library of icons here, and you can choose anything and specify size and things like that. So it's very, very easy. You can use an image or just an icon, description, and a link. And you can see that here. So it's very, very easy. But what we do notice is, because we're talking about styles still, is that there's this background. So sub feature has a background. So if we go into styles and we have a look at sub feature section, which is right here, we see there's a background, there's some text color setting, and there's an image. So the first thing we notice, I guess, is the text is white, which corresponds to the setting here. It's been set to white, and there's an image as well. So it's very, very easy from here to choose an image. I can see that this has been chosen, and once that's chosen there, essentially that's how easy it is. What we've done is two things. One, we've gone into the layout and we've set up what we want in that section, which is icons, but we've also now applied some styling to the sub feature section, which is adding the background and specifying that we want this text, so any text in here, to be white. So that's just essentially how easy it is. The same thing applies to next events. So if we look at events, which is right here, it's section 2. We've got an events particle that's been dragged in. It pulls in your events. The title corresponds to what you see there. If you want a description, there's some styling. You can specify your grid, aligning your header. It's very, very flexible. Essentially what that does is it outputs just these things there. And then if we go back into styles, you'll see the same thing again. Is that if we go to section 2, which is right here, there's been a background color, text and image. The image is what you see set this yellow one here. And once that's set there and you save the settings, that's what you'll get. So it's very, very easy. So you can imagine if this wasn't already set up, it would be very, very easy to do. You can pick where you want your events to be. Right there, you go through the particles, which are essentially building blocks, and you find tribe events. You put that in there. You configure the settings very, very quickly. There's some general settings that have been there. If you want to override them, all you have to do is click in, and you can override test heading, and I'll just leave it like that, and then click apply and save. And then if we go into the front end, then I refresh, you can see that what we've just put in has been output there in that same section. It's got the same background, and you're ready to go. So if you were building something like this from scratch, it would take a while, but using these building blocks, this is how easy it is. So it's just taking me 5 seconds to put this in, and now I can display events on my church website. So what I'll do is I'll delete this, so you can just drag and drop up here to delete. Very, very easy. Save the layout, and now we're back to what we had. So very, very easy to do. There's a whole lot of different particles or building blocks here, which you can make use of, and we're adding to these constantly, and we're also enhancing the ones that are already here. So lots of building blocks, anything you can possibly think of, we either have or we're going to have with your support. So you just need to let us know what you need, and then you'll have it. Simple as that. So that's the styling and the layouts. You can see how very easy that is. We'll go into content very briefly. Content is sort of WordPress specific styling or options for literally what it says, content. So think of the blog, think of the sermon settings, think of events settings. So this is more for the advanced user possibly, but why we've put that here is just to give you complete control over every aspect of your website. We don't want you to have to go into the back end of the code and have to manipulate code. All the options are here. So you can see for the blog, there's a whole myriad of options. If we go into the blog template page, like this, you'll see that the heading is not there. So normally by default, this will say blog or your blog or whatever it might be, whatever the page name is. You can see, for example, here that we've turned off the blog page heading because we don't need it in our layout. It just doesn't need to be there aesthetically, and so on. So you can see that there's a lot of options there. You can show the author or not. At the moment, everything is showing, all the metadata is showing. You can turn any one of those off. You can also configure styling. So you can either show your blog in this sort of traditional format, or you can do a grid and specify all of that here, how many columns you want your grid to have and so on. So very, very flexible. There's some settings for single pages, single posts, archive, events, again, columns, style for the grid. If you just choose one column for both events or the blog, essentially this is what you'll see, just a traditional view, one column. And then there's options for sermons, which are very, very flexible, just giving you complete flexibility around your sermon pages, styling them and showing or not showing certain pieces of information. So we've built all this from scratch, and the intention is to give you complete control over your styles and over your page settings without having to go back into the back end and code and manipulate that. So very, very quick, very rapid development minded. A few more sermon options there as well. So I'll leave the content settings there. If you'd like any more information around this, just please let us know at the Slack group. Particle defaults. So particles essentially are just building blocks, as I mentioned before, and you can see them here in the layout, particles, and there's several there already. And essentially, if you think about them as building blocks, so you want to put in a social feed, well, just drag and drop that in and configure it. You want to drag in, you want to do a tab, you want to do some tabs, easy. Donations, we've already got integrations with Tidely. You can put that wherever you like. Events, very, very easy, add in events. So anything you can almost think of or need is here or will be here eventually. So I guess that's where we need your help, is to just let us know if anything is missing or anything can be improved out of the existing ones. Then we wanna do that with you. The other thing that's worth noting here is you see these ripples. So that's just a visual indicator that you've made some changes and that you need to save. So if you try and navigate anywhere else, it will ask you how you've made some changes. Do you want to discard those or do you want to change? Or you can also always press Save Layout here to change it. Now, whilst I'm on this topic, the theme framework also comes with unlimited undo and redo, which you can see here. So I've just put in a whole lot of things here just to show you, but I don't really need them to be in there. So I want to do undo. And you can see as I'm clicking undo, they're disappearing. And now that I've undone all of them, this no longer requests you to save because we're back to where we were since the last save, and it's saying, well, there are no changes to save. So very, very easy, or I can just put them back if I want them back. So very, very easy to do that. So that's when it comes to layouts. It's just amazingly easy to do. So with page settings are essentially for, well, kind of the name kind of says it all, but the global page settings, so things in your head properties, in the body, again, a little bit more advanced. You can set your favicon here for your site just to brand it a bit better, touch icons, any custom CSS or JavaScript code can easily be put in there. Again, the whole concept is, if you think about it, is we don't want you going into the back end unless you absolutely have to. So if you think I want to do A, B or C, first think, okay, there must be a way to do that through here. And we'll run through overrides, overriding a theme safely in a separate video. But more or less, certainly has been our experience, is you can do a lot just using these tabs here without ever having to go into the back end. In page settings, you'll also see the atoms. Now atoms are sort of like particles. Atoms are essentially also building blocks, but they don't usually render visually on the front end. They may do in some certain contexts, like a login pop-up, but usually they're, again, building blocks of code that you can just put in a modular fashion. So again, traditionally you would have had to put JavaScript code for example, for Google Analytics, or if you want to have some custom analytics in your site, you'd